Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'd like to thank all of my colleagues from the legislature who are standing here behind me, but really standing behind the families and the people of Tumbler Ridge. It's not often that the legislature is fully united, but clearly, with all Canadians, we're standing with those families, those loved ones who are suffering right now, and with little Maya who's in the hospital, and with her family. Last night there were people in Victoria here who gathered for a vigil, and simultaneously across the country, vigils were taking place, as in Tumbler Ridge. It was a very moving experience to be in the community, both during that vigil and generally. The shock is starting to wear off in the community, and the emotions are really starting to show up for people. I had the opportunity to meet with health workers at the local health center there to hear about their work on the day of this horrific tragedy. There were a lot of tears in the room. There were a lot of stories of people stepping up in different ways, the paramedics who responded. And I want to express my deep gratitude to them for their work for the community. I had the opportunity with the Minister for Public Safety, Nina Krieger, to visit the makeshift memorial that's been set up in the center of town. And to lay some flowers, and I have a hard time getting rid of the image of a hockey card that was part of that memorial. I know that all of us are grieving for these families, and you'll note that today was not a usual day for a speech from the throne at the legislature. Usually today is a day of ceremony and pomp. The government sets out the agenda for the province, and a lot of energy goes into setting up for this day. A lot of people put in a lot of time. I want to thank them for that. But everybody from all parties understood why we could not go ahead with the throne speech today, why we couldn't go on with business as normal, because this is not a normal day for British Columbia or for Canada, and why we had to stand together with the families in Tumbler Ridge today. The business of government will go on. We'll make sure we're serving the people of British Columbia, of course. But part of the service of British Columbia is recognizing a moment of tragedy and horror and standing strong with those families. With that, I'd like to invite questions from the media.
Thank you for joining us today. We have time for some questions here. We start with Keith Baldry from Global News. Go ahead, Keith.
Mr. Premier, continuing on with this unprecedented show of not just bipartisanship, but tripartisanship, what message does this send to the public about the role of the legislature in terms of communicating to people in times of tragedy?
The legislature is a place of laws and of regulations, but it's also a place that's full of symbols of who we are as a province, where we've come from, and where we're going. And it's important, I think, for me, and I imagine for my colleagues, why they're standing here, why we're all standing here together, as a symbol, just as it was a symbol in Tumbler Ridge for the community to come together and stand in solidarity with those parents, with those families, with those kids, with those teachers, and say we're with you. There are moments of agreement in this place, but the symbolic standing with the community, I think, is the most important thing. It's what we can do in a moment when everyone struggles to know what to do. The mayor of Tumbler Ridge recommended, as the Lieutenant Governor said, to reach out, give a hug, pat someone on the back, reach out, give them that support. And I think that's what we're doing here today as a group.
Yeah, you say the shock is starting to wear off, and that business will get back to a more regular footing. But how difficult will it be from a political leader's point of view, or any of your colleagues on the driveway here, to actually get back to partisan politics? Or is that something we should get back to?
Yeah, I think, just sitting in the House personally today, like literally, I was on the plane from Tumbler Ridge, came right here to Victoria to sit down in the House, and it feels different. It feels different from the raw reality in the community, the emotions that people are going through, the grief, and the routines of the legislature can be a comfort, but at the same time they can feel pretty empty. And today they felt pretty empty. And I think that's why we needed to end the day early. That's why my colleagues and I need to reach out to our communities who are all suffering with these parents who are all wanting to reach out and help and support. There's anxiety in our schools, in our home communities. We want to be able to support. That's the meaningful thing for us to do as elected representatives right now. And I think that's the most appropriate thing for us to do.
Let's go to Rob Shaw from CHEK News.
You just mentioned seeing a hockey card. Can you tell us a bit about what you saw and what you heard up there, and how it affected you personally?
Yeah, I mean, there was the memorial is quite a moving thing. There's a lot of toys. There's a lot of flowers. These kids were 11 to 13 years old. They're just babies. And there was a man who wasn't part of the media, was just kind of standing near the memorial. I went over and introduced myself to him. And, he was kind and welcoming, but he couldn't talk. He couldn't say anything. In a moment of just utter grief. And I think we're all struggling for words right now, which is why these gestures are important. To be in the health center and talk with a health worker who had brought her son to work with her today because she didn't want to let him out of her sight. He was a student at the local high school. She just needed him to be at work with her. To be in the hotel there and at the Continental breakfast and see who was in the lobby was all people with victim services on big vests and RCMP officers in a community of 2,500 people, where people over and over told me, a local doctor told me, the most dangerous public safety threat here is running into a moose. This is not something that our community knows how to deal with. This is not something we have to deal with. This is such a safe community. People kept saying that over and over. And also there's a deep commitment to the community that the community will come through this, that it's going to be a long journey, but that people love Tumbler Ridge, that it's beautiful, that it has incredible attributes, including its people, and it is a beautiful place. And so, there is, and I hope to see it develop a sense of hope about the other side. But right now, there sure is a lot of grief.
Follow-up, Rob?
A throne speech usually talks about your government's priorities. When the public is ready to hear that, how will they receive it in the future? How will you sort of communicate what you didn't in today's throne speech in the future to tell people what the government intends to do in the months ahead?
Yeah, it's such a consequential time for British Columbians and for Canadians. There are huge challenges and opportunities for our province right now. And it's hard to think of a more eventful time, really, in recent memory than what we face right now as British Columbians. And yet, even in the face of that, to have unanimity across the legislature that today was not the day for it, and that we needed to respect and support the community, tells you about the depth of what's happened in Tumbler Ridge and the depth of feeling that's going on across the country. we'll be putting forward the budget. There'll be a budget speech when we're able to. I'll ensure that I engage with British Columbians about where we're going and what we're going to do in the way that the throne speech was meant to. But for right now, where we're going, what we're meant to do is to support those families in Tumbler Ridge.
We have time for one more. We're going to go to Alex Lazenby from Post Media.
Hi, Premier. Last night you mentioned that you had heard many stories of heroics on Tuesday from first responders, from community members, from police that you said the public hadn't heard about yet. Are you prepared at this time to talk about some of those stories of the heroic actions that you heard up in Tumbler Ridge?
Yeah, thanks, Alec. I was incredibly honored with the trust that people placed in me when I was up there, what they shared with me. The stories are theirs to share. What I will say is there were stories of students protecting other students. There were stories of teachers pulling the injured out of the hall to perform CPR. There were stories of first responders going in under gunfire to look after kids. And stories of volunteers with the fire department. Volunteers with the volunteer fire department showing up to see and to pitch in on what could only be described as a horrific scene. I hope that the people of Tumbler Ridge are able to share their stories directly, because they are deeply moving and they are deeply inspiring about the nature of humanity, which is universal, and how we support each other in a moment of crisis. But they're not my stories to share.
You'll follow, Alec.
Yes, one of the things, and I know the province has poured resources into the community, mental health supports for people there, but I know the mayor was talking about last night about the fact that they do have a shortage of family doctors up there. The local emergency room is having issues with diversions and overnight closures. Just what, I guess, is your plan to help support that community in terms of improving, not only health, but also mental health services in Tumbler Ridge?
Yeah, thanks, Alec. Healthcare is a huge challenge in Tumbler Ridge. It's a community of 2,500 people, a little regional health center. There are 3 doctors there. There's a handful of nurses, including nurses from the local community who come in and out, who commute in and out, and then temporary nurses through the Health Authorities Agency who keep it open. But recently, the facility started closing overnight. The mayor has done a lot of advocacy to try to keep it open, but we don't have enough medical staff to be able to do that. And so there's considerable anxiety in this moment about that period between 11 p.m. when the community center closes and 7 a.m. in the morning when it opens again, because right now in the community center, that's where the counselors are, that's where the supports are for people. So what happens overnight? And we know overnight is really when the feelings can hit for a lot of people. And so Northern Health is up there. They're working with the health center to ensure that there are resources available in the overnight period for urgent mental health crisis that people might be facing. There's an expectation on everybody's part that there will be an increased number of mental health calls over this period and perhaps into the future. And so they're making plans about how to provide that support on an ongoing basis going forward in Tumbler Ridge. And sadly, there are people who are expert in tragedies at schools who know that there is a sort of pattern of community response in these moments of crisis that are assisting and anticipating the supports that people are going to need in the community who are on the ground supporting the school district right now and the health authority. So we will make sure those supports are in place and that the community is supported.
And that concludes the event today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everybody.